Hey everyone, welcome to the weekend edition of The Bullet for Saturday the 18th of March 2023, otherwise known as Hangover Day, the day after we do St. Patrick's Day. Joining me today, I'm very pleased, a good friend, great mind, and somebody who hasn't been able to be on the air with us for a while. Greg Hopkins is joining us. He's the author of A Time to Kill, the Bible. There you go, right there. Let me go ahead and put his. There you go. A Time to Kill, the Bible and Self-Defense is his book. You can get it on Amazon.
Okay, breaking into new man.
Also joining us, Rob Morse. To my knowledge, Rob has not yet written a book, although you could consider his website a book, I guess. It's got enough content there. He's
2,100 articles. Eventually, I'll catch up with Greg.
There you go. Self-Defense Gun Stories is his podcast. In the top 1% now of all podcasts globally.
Yeah, you for a while it was 0.5%. Now I'm down to 1.
Oh, well, you're still, believe it or not, you're more popular than Polite Society Podcast. We're still top 2. So,
Wow.
We have not yet made the top 1% on Polite Society. So, and the Bullet is nowhere close to that. But we're doing very, very well on video. So anyway, gentlemen, I want to mention to everybody as we get started, if you're watching on the Polite Society Podcast Facebook or YouTube feeds, go ahead and comment on those videos. I'll get those comments up, get them on the air right away. If you're catching us anywhere else on Rumble, on Getter, on OpsLens, anywhere else we broadcast live, go to Twitter, tweet with the hashtag #TheBullet, and we'll get those comments up as well. I want to get, and now I just now popping up, and let's hope there are no technical issues, because just now popping up is the great Mike Piwowarski of Arms Room Radio. Mike, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we've got you. We've got
There
you.
we go. Perfect.
So
I feel underdressed. Rob's got a shirt and tie on. Greg's got a polo or a nice polo shirt on. And Paul, you and I are sitting here having a smoke while they're doing their
yeah, exactly.
Stuff.
I've got a long sleeve T-shirt on that I bought down in the Virgin Islands, and I've got we're the two casual guys here, man.
I've got a show host, a military veteran, a former municipal judge, and lawyer. I figured I'm a slob. I better dress up. Is all I got.
Is that what you wear when you go diving, Rob?
No, it's when the judge says, "All rise." This way, I look good.
There you go. Got it.
All right.
Got it.
All right, let's get started, guys. My first story I want to talk about today. This is just a press release from SAF, but it's really, honestly, for me, it's big news, because I know the other people involved in this too. Press release: Big Tech's Ordinance in Conroe, Texas, has selected the Second Amendment Foundation as their choice organization for the month of March. Through this project, customers can donate one more at checkout, and BTO will match any donation up to $200. I'm going to go ahead and skip over the rest of the press release here, but that's a big deal. Big Tech's Ordinance has some really good stuff. I buy from there myself, and for them to do this and match donations is a huge deal. I am super, super pleased that they've come on board to do this.
What do we say? Support those who support us?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Thank you.
Absolutely. And we'll get to later in the day, later in the show, we'll get to about how SAF and others are going to increase our freedoms through lawsuits, and that's the most effective way to do it, especially with the Supreme Court the way it is now. If you were to be inclined to donate to SAF, go buy something from Big Tech's Ordinance and donate through them, and they will match your contribution. So if you want to donate a couple $100 to help these lawsuits go along, Big Tech's ordinance will match it the rest of the month. So that's fantastic. Let me just move this over here so I can see if we have any comments coming in. None yet. So next story.
You want me to take?
Yeah.
Paul, before you run on, Paul.
Yeah.
We met the guys from Big Tech's Ordinance out at SHOT Show. We'd never met them face to face before, and they were one of the sponsors for the party that we hosted on Monday night for Arms Room Radio. And these guys are listen. I can tell you, that it's not just a publicity thing or anything like that with Second Amendment Foundation. They were all about us because we did our association with SAF and FPC and the like. They're really into the guarantee in our rights. And this is not just with SAF. They'll do this. They'll do this another month with another organization that's fighting the fight. They are trying to not just make one or two single donations here or there. They're really spreading it around for those that are fighting the fight all around the country, trying to help all of those organizations out.
Yeah, I met them at the Mingle last year. They are how do I put this? They don't just talk the talk; they walk the walk.
Yeah.
So they are true patriots at that company.
And
Rob,
Paul,
you want to take our story about the Department of Justice there?
Do you mean John Petrolino's story? New Jersey?
No, well, yeah, let's go ahead and, yeah, absolutely. Let's go to that one. I'd scrolled too far. Go ahead.
All right. It's a famous quote. The power to regulate is the power to destroy. The power to tax is the power to destroy. John Petrolino put this together. The Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs is calling on New Jersey lawmakers and the 1 million gun owners in New Jersey to boycott all Atlantic City casinos. This is after the casinos put an orchestrated effort to ban the right to carry on casino property. Well, it's private property. We can do what we want, close quote. Well, not quite. So now we could understand if you said in the casino, proper, maybe. Your hotel room, should be different situation. What about the parking lot? No, that's all covered.
Yeah.
Given the millions in taxpayer-funded bailouts of these casinos over the years, it's debatable whether that property can even qualify as private property anymore. Casinos have received those bailouts, including recently under the Murphy administration during COVID. But because they're regulated, the governor can lean on them and say, nice casino you have there. Be ashamed if anything happened to it. What do you guys have to say?
That's exactly, I believe, what's going on here is Murphy said, if you want to keep getting these bailouts, if you want to keep, pardon my crude language, if you want to keep sucking at the government teat, you need to do this. And the casinos just pulled it and did it.
Yep.
Paul, does that, if it says any casino property, does that mean if I'm staying at the casino hotel, I'm not allowed to bring my gun in my suitcase? Or, that's what seems to imply to me.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You're not even in the parking lot going into the property, you're not allowed to carry there.
Well, see, this is part of, I've been thinking about this week, what Mike brought up about big techs. We really need to support the people that support us, and we have a right to expect that they would. This left-wing attack on property is something that I've been speaking about lately here locally, and there are
So from breaking your rush.
Is when socialists try to take control, is the first thing they do is to limit the right of private property, and we saw this in the riots in 2020, and in a whole lot of other things, that they are encroaching constantly on private control of private property through government handouts, like with these casinos and in all other kind of cases. And their idea is to destroy the middle class and to, when there is nothing left but poor people and a very tiny middle class and then a very rich people who are in control, you basically have a communist state. And the only other way that they can achieve that is to attack our Second Amendment rights. And that has been the modus operandi. I don't care if you talk about Mao, if you talk about Lenin, it's the way they do things. But they denigrate the right to private property constantly.
Yep. Yeah.
And people eventually get convinced.
Absolutely. George Geller on the YouTube side just had a comment. Parking lots are probably the most dangerous places any of us visit on a regular basis. That's what's known as transitionary zones. And yeah, there's generally not security roaming around the parking lot. So yeah, it's if you need to be armed in a public place, I'd say a parking lot is probably among the most dangerous places you go, no matter where it is.
Well, let me try and I want to wrap another story into this one that you actually talked about yesterday on your personal social media side about TSA. Conversation came up, and again, I'll give you a moment. I'll tie them all in together here. But in the casinos, if that's a private ownership, and I always used to feel this way, being a business owner and a private property owner. If it's private property, it's my business, and I decide I don't want firearms there. Well, that's it. You know what? It's somebody else's house, and you respect the rules in somebody else's house. But the moment that they start taking money from the government for bailout money, well, it's no longer a private business anymore, right? If I own a business and it's 100% business, and my buddy John comes over and says, let me buy in 20%. Well, I'm not the entire business owner anymore. Well, if the government comes over and gives me money and now they're a part owner of my business, guess what? It's now a public funded business. You lose your private property rights. Now that there's public money involved, I don't see how they can tell you no firearms in there. Now, I get the boycott part, and I know we're talking about that, and I support that. But I think the governor has done us a solid by saying, you're taking our money. You have to play by my rules. Well, that's great, Judge. Or seriously, that's great, Mr. Governor. How about we send it through the court system like they did down in Georgia, and they had the same issue down there with going to the zoo and going to the stadium for football because they receive government money and it's public funded. People have the right to carry their firearms on those public funded properties. So I think the governor saying these things may have advanced us a little bit in the fact where we could say, hey, thanks, Governor. You just said that that's public funded. Now I get to carry my gun there because it's public funded and I'm the public, right? And bringing it back around to the TSA side, I used to be the one that said, and Paul, your comment yesterday was, I think it was, I wish it was as hard to vote as it was to get an ID or something like that.
I wish it was as hard to vote as it was to buy a gun.
There you go, to buy a gun. And the issue was an ID, having an ID, and that developed down the rabbit hole into you have to have an ID to get on an airplane. And my thoughts used to be, and this is the industry used to regulate this industry, was okay, you know what? It's a privilege to get on an airplane, but over time, listen, over recent years, many years, let's say, I'm down here in Florida, and Paul, I have a family member, guys, Greg, Rob, I have a family member in Seattle that passes away, and I've got to get up there. Well, guess what? I'm not getting on a cruise ship to go there. I'm not riding on a train or a horse to get there. It's become a public utility. It's no longer a privilege anymore. And definitely when you have government money involved with all those bailouts, I can't see how you can tell me that I can't ride a public utility and I'm the public. Even if it's with carrying my firearm underneath, I'm not talking about on an aircraft, in the body loaded, but that's a different story. We can go there at another point. But once something becomes public funded, we have the rights and we have the access to that. And I think that's the same as with those casinos. Now, I'm all for the boycott to hurt someone when they go against the Second Amendment or any of our other, our constitutional rights. But I just think the backside of that is the governor may have made this easier for us to carry firearms in public funded places.
Let's be. You're being strategic. I appreciate that. I want to be tactical for just a minute. Where could people go and spend their money if they didn't want to go to an Atlantic casino? Are there Atlantic City, New York, Pennsylvania? Who else have we got? Where could they go? North Carolina?
Connecticut's got casinos.
Yep.
Not that. We'd have to.
I was just
thinking
I was just thinking of nationwide. If you want real in-person gambling, Las Vegas and Atlantic City style.
Oh, well, of course.
In a free state, there is Deadwood, South Dakota, that's got several large casinos there. There's Reno is not as restrictive as Las Vegas is. Several hotels in Vegas are decidedly anti-gun now.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. And we've all been, at SHOT Show. There's a couple still, and this is obviously previous to the shooting there 3 years ago, and you could open carry in some of these casinos. I remember the Riviera. You could open carry before the Riv closed down, and still some of the smaller ones you can. It's legal to open carry in Las Vegas. The only time that you can't is if that particular hotel or casino says no. Obviously, it's a little more heightened touchy-feely since the shooting there. But you're right. Outside of Las Vegas, some of the smaller casinos, and definitely in Reno, it's a lifestyle to carry and to open carry there, and it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Well, have you ever looked at a map of the? Go ahead, Greg. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. That one of the solutions might be if you hang around courthouses, then what they have to bring prisoners in is a sally port, and right there it says no guns past this point. And so each police officer takes his gun, and they have a little locker for it, and it's got the key in there. He just puts his gun in there. He's got the key. No one else can get it. Now, in the next county over west of us, Limestone County, their courthouse, actually they say, do you have a permit? Yeah. You got a gun? Yeah. It says, well, before you get to the metal detector, there's about 10 lock boxes, just like in the sheriff's department. Now, I doubt that the casinos can say they're not making enough money that they could put, 100 or so of these lock boxes right outside the casino, because it makes a difference to me as a lawyer. I've got clients and I've got people that got mad at me over the years, yet they're saying I had to walk from my office to the courthouse unarmed, So while it was available, I would always use the police lock boxes.
Gotcha.
This is something that the casinos could do to attract pro-gun people and advance their image quite a bit.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah,
and it would still.
We have in Florida.
It would be a rare occurrence because it would also appease the other side. Look, because we know that once we're in this space, that all the pro-gun people check their guns outside. So as long as they pair it with a metal detector and real security, I don't have a problem with it. Yep. It's the security theater I have a problem with.
Yeah, there you go. So that's what TAA is, right? The security appearance. We have in Florida, and there's 67 counties in Florida, and we know that we got 60 of them are very, very pro-gun sheriffs, and then we got the 7 metropolitan areas where they're going to play by the rules. They're politicians. There was a case here a couple recent years ago where in Florida you can't carry concealed firearms into a court or a board meeting or a government meeting in session. You could take it into government facilities now, thanks to one of the cases Florida Carry did a few years back. Well, one of the things came up with injunctions and domestic violence injunctions and repeat violence injunctions. When people were going to petition, they actually have to go into the court because, Your Honor, as you know, you have to get a judge's signature on that. So it's in session while the judge is there. And they said that, listen, the most dangerous thing for us is to show up for our meeting, our initial appearance, the 15-day, 10-day, whatever your jurisdiction is, and I've got to walk through the parking lot without my gun with the person that I'm afraid of that I've filed this injunction against. So they gave them, and many counties have done this, except those very liberal counties still fighting there. You could carry your firearm to the courthouse, go to just like Greg said, where the police officers go in. They got a separate set of lockboxes and keys for them, and they surrender their firearm at the checkpoint where the police take over the primary safety aspect for firearms. So it works. It works. You have to find somebody that not only agrees with the Second Amendment but follows the law.
That just to show you, it seems novel to us. I think that's been the law, I want to say, for a decade now in Arizona. And I can hear Charles Heller quoting me the Arizona statute that if you have a commercial establishment that wants to be gun-free, you can say, guys, glad to do it. Here are the lock boxes. By the way, I think that's also how they treat their courthouses, just as you do down in Alabama, Greg. Where are we headed next, and do we have comments?
Well, let me get a couple comments in here quick. First one here, if I can find the right button. Jack Need on the Facebook side says, armed everywhere. That's where you need to be armed. Even in non-pervasive environments, learn how to conceal. I am not going to advocate, especially with a judge here on the panel with me, I'm not going to advocate anybody breaking the law.
Well, yeah, neither do I, Paul, but at the same point, when I started at the city attorney's office, I've been able to wear a gun at the Court of Criminal Appeals in my former employment, but the mayor had a rule only certified officers can carry inside city buildings. And, I went in the first day and had my little Beretta 21A on my ankle. And then I had an incident, which I won't go into, take too much time. But I had a very scary incident, and I had an officer's model 45, and my wife said, you strap that on and have it with you at all times because they don't pay you enough to come home in a box. I mean, I can go get a job anywhere if they want to detect me and fire me, but I carried that officer's model from then on, and I know how to conceal a gun. And I did jury trials with it on, and only one person ever caught me at it, and that was I was doing a probation revocation in court, and the most gun-savvy DA, I'd leaned over on the table. He was behind me, and he says, and the judge was being an idiot, and he said, you got a gun on, Greg? I said, yeah, Rob. He said, be cool. He says, okay, no problem. He says, you can shoot that judge, though. I'll say it was self-defense. But it just, while I don't tell my classes or anything, I'm encouraging you to break the law. But if you're good at it, if you know what you're doing, then and there's not something that's going to expose you like a metal detector. Now the courthouse, we can't do that. And oddly enough, in Alabama, Limestone County is the only county court that I know that does that. We're unfortunately, Mike, we don't have the same situation as you all do in Florida. They say it's too expensive to put, out there. The bureaucrats always come up with some excuse.
Sure, they do. Let me get to another comment in here quick. Go to Big John 410 on YouTube. He wants to remind us that Pennsylvania and Delaware have casinos, which are also near New Jersey, Pennsylvania being right next door.
Thank you, Big John. I wanted that local knowledge.
Yeah.
There was a local courthouse you had to go in there. In this case, to get a passport. And I'm going through my backpack. Do you have anything? Oh, I left it at home. It's all oops, officer, I have a pocket knife. What would you like me to do with it? Do you want me to leave it with you? And he goes, I don't want it because if it gets lost, can you put it in the bottom of your backpack and leave it there? I go, sounds like a plan, So there are a few people. He goes, you're not going to court. I'm going to get my passport. You want it? So there are people who still retain a little common sense.
Let's go ahead and move on to our next story. This one, I don't think I covered it. I think it was on Thursday, but so nobody here has covered it with me yet. President Joe Biden thinks it's unfair that people convicted of simple marijuana possession face lingering consequences for doing something he says should not be treated as a crime. Biden cited those burdens last October when he announced a mass pardon of low-level federal marijuana offenders, which he said would help thousands of people who were previously convicted of simple possession, and yet who may be denied employment, housing, or educational opportunities as a result. Yet the Biden administration, which recently began accepting applications for the pardon certificates aimed at ameliorating those circumstances after dragging its feet for 5 months, is actively defending another blatantly unjust disability associated with cannabis consumption: the loss of their Second Amendment rights. Under federal law, it is a felony punishable by 15 years in prison for an unlawful user of a controlled substance to possess firearm. That ban applies to all cannabis consumers, even if they live in one of the 37 states that have legalized medical or recreational use of marijuana. That disability, a federal judge in Oklahoma ruled last month, is not consistent with this nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation, the constitutional test that the Supreme Court established in 2022's Bruin decision. But the Justice Department is still saying, look, Biden wants it legal across America, but if you do it, you still don't get your Second Amendment rights, is basically what that article off Reason is saying. I'm gonna say with this, I agree with the Biden personally. I cannot speak when I speak anything outside of guns. I cannot speak for the Second Amendment Foundation. Speaking for Paul Lathrop, look, I don't care what you put in your body, as long as you know what's going on, as long as you're aware of whatever consequences, and you want to do it, do it. As long as it doesn't hurt me or my family, I couldn't care less. But your life is still worth defending. No matter what supposed law you broke, I don't see why your life is not worth defending. If the government thinks it's that you're too dangerous to be out there, put them in prison where somebody else can defend their life. Kinda. And then when they're good enough to rejoin society, let them have their rights. Rob, you're in show notes. What do you want to say, man?
Well, I'm an old fart, and marijuana now is something very different than what it was when I was a kid. The dosage in marijuana are much higher than we grew up with. So I can imagine it being regulated the same way nicotine is regulated in cigarettes. Under this dosage, fine. Cops in states where they legalize the recreational use have said, oh yeah, we pull a lot of people over who are clearly intoxicated. It's not, what's the word? It's not benign. Now, we can argue about its degree of addiction and the side effects. Gotcha. Different issue. But I do notice this about the Biden administration. They're desperate for distractions right now. They just tanked an economy. They're just about they're
several banks.
Dancing with, right. They're dancing with war in the Eastern Europe. Oh yeah, bring up guns, because anything to put his name in the headlines that's not about the mess he made, that's what I think some of this is.
The question here is about individual rights, and especially guaranteed rights. Now, on the idea of driving is a privilege in every state, supposedly, and they have a constitutional right to travel, yeah, but you don't have a constitutional right to do it in a car. That's what you're going to run into. However, when we arrest a person for DUI, we are arresting them for operating a vehicle under the influence to the extent that they can't safely operate that vehicle. But if we say, if you have a prescription for marijuana, then we will not give you a driver's license. Then, see, this is the analogy here, is that we're going to use prior restraint, which is banned by the Bill of Rights, and also our tradition of innocent until proven guilty. If you are under the influence of marijuana and operating a vehicle and you can't operate it safely, that's a whole different thing. But to say that, you smoke a joint twice a week because you have fibromyalgia or something, then you're simply, you can't own a gun. It's just a little, there's not much room left on the slippery slope before they say, you're taking antidepressants, and therefore you can't have a gun. And you can see what people, they always say in the logical fallacies that argument that the slippery slope argument is a logical fallacy. Not when you're dealing with government. Never when you're dealing with government.
Well, and the next step down that slope is, Greg, you were on this pro-gun show back in March of 2023. You obviously, because you were on this pro-gun show, are a terrorist or have terroristic thoughts, therefore you cannot have a firearm.
Exactly. Yeah, it can get that far. If you don't believe it, ask a German Jew that was alive in 1939.
Right.
Mike or Rob,
Yeah,
you want to chime
I'll jump in. It's first off, just back to the topic of the story, then I'll jump down the rabbit hole again. It's how double standard of it is this administration when it says you can have all your rights restored for marijuana issues except for the rights that I don't agree with, the Second Amendment rights. So it's as hypocritical as you can get, and we've come to expect that from their party of inclusion, right? But Paul, you mentioned the personal belief, right? Your personal belief, and I'll tell you I have a struggle with the marijuana issue as well when it comes to personal rights. Firearm rights. Now, in Florida, anyway, we got lucky. I know somebody at some point, when they wrote the law, they said possession of the firearm while under the influence of a controlled substance. Whether that be marijuana or antidepressants or whatever it happens to be. I know I've over 20 years in law enforcement made it's easily over 100 DUI arrests. I was on the DUI squad for a while, and marijuana users were amongst them. Those are the ones you'd find stopped at the stop sign waiting for it to turn green. That's that kind of stuff really happens. It does change. 2 a week, somebody that controls it. It's the same thing with alcohol, guys. We see this all the time, right? I can go out and have 2 beers with friends and be fine. And then you've got others that live behind a convenience store drinking half bottles of whiskey out of a dumpster. It's a matter of, personal control and discipline when you're going to have these substances. I could, Paul, and one of the things you said, this is what I'm torn over is, if they choose to put whatever in their body that they want to, that's fine. I really don't have an issue with that. The issue is, and I'm sure, Greg, you've seen this on the bench, that they don't stop there. When it takes control of them and they start, they lose their house, they lose their jobs, they break into your home for money to get it, and now they're in the hospital with no insurance, and all of our rates go up, and there's less bed space for all of us, and we all started that with, you have the right to put in your body whenever you want. I don't want over government at all, but at some point we have to draw a line, because what they're doing is now infringing upon my right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
Yep. That's so true. But we have to remember that the first duty of government is to protect citizens so they may live in peace. Now, what are we protecting them from? Well, if you go back to the founders, then we were protecting them from actual criminals and from criminal actions that hurt other people. And that's what we should really stick to, because there's some things that would affect any legislation you have about marijuana and firearms. So this is going back to our DUI analogy. If we make a law that says if you are under the influence of marijuana and you commit a crime with a firearm, we can make that law as punitive as possible. But if you are merely operating a firearm and doing it in a safe and sane manner and don't cause any harm to anyone, well, then again, why does government need to come in? And one of the things that I believe every state has, but certainly Alabama, is that self-intoxication is never an excuse to breaking the law. Yeah. And so if we keep it in the area of you have broken the law and therefore are a danger to others, they don't have the out of saying, "Oh, I was drunk, I was high," and we can, like I said, we can make that law as punitive as we want to, in order to deter other people from doing such a thing, which is basically what DUI laws are. They're a deterrent to people. They are no deterrent to people. I've seen people, if they've had a second DUI, they'll probably get another one in 4 years. If they first DUI is a mistake. Yeah, first DUI is a mistake. I was out with friends, everybody was having a good time, and those people that do that, they feel so ashamed, and then you never see them again in court, right, Mike? But you get the 2, 3. Buddy, they're out at the package store, every night. We had a guy that was the first guy we convicted in Alabama or in Huntsville with felony DUI, and he had been a trustee in our court for 6 months. He's a manager at a pizza place, bring us pizzas on Friday morning that didn't get eaten, and nice guy. Well, 6 weeks after the felony law was passed, he's driving down the liquor store, and one of our DUI task force guys knew him, and all the DUI task force knew this guy. He says, Jim, what are you? The officer said, so why are you driving? It's only 3 blocks to the liquor store. He said, Dean, I'm too drunk to walk. He told me all. See, and later on, after he had gotten sobered up, he told one of our local news channels, a reporter asked, how many times have you driven that you didn't get caught and you knew you were drunk? He says, thousands. So, it's but to make this, once again, the government is attempting prior restraint in order to eventually eliminate the thing that they fear, which is armed citizens.
We got a comment here from Mike White on the YouTube side that I think is going to go in with Rob, your next comment. Mike White was saying, I was thinking no pain meds, no gun for you. And you got something that dovetails a little bit off that in show notes, bud.
Well, let's bring it up because we're walking right next to it. Good point, Mike. And we now have organizations, Hold My Guns. And it's not just pain meds. You're going through chemo. Maybe your wife just died in a tragic accident. Look, different days are different. You can be infinitely sane. You can be a great guy, but put me under enough stress, and I want my friends to hold my guns for me. We want to make that easy and legal. There is an issue. Not only are we different in time, we're different from each other. I know my family has struggled with addiction. Some of us are strongly attracted to drugs and are easily addicted. As a governmental question, how much addiction is too much? Because there are some drugs now, just casual exposure and people are strongly addicted. And then we have to balance that. And Greg, you can write this tune. The government is very limited in its ability to control addiction. Prohibition doesn't work well. These are big societal issues. I don't have simple answers.
Yeah, I will pop the warning out there, Rob, because you said that we have the organizations, wonderful organizations, even just random gun stores that will store your firearms for you in your times of trouble. I know a couple of them that with military guys, when they deploy, they'll store them for free while they're deployed. I would say if you see these organizations start to pop up in your local governments, and your governments will store them for free for you, don't do it. Don't give your guns to the government, okay? Who knows what policy is going to change and what administrator is going to change while you're gone. Don't let them watch your guns for you. You'll never see them again.
You're
Amen.
absolutely right there. And what condition, if you do, will they be in? Will they have been stored in a good, safe place, or will they have gotten wet?
Right.
Will they have been cleaned?
Yeah.
Will they have? Yeah.
Well, Mike, I've never operated a gun store. If I check my firearms in at a gun store that's part of Hold My Guns, does it enter their book? Is this like a transaction, or is it just like it's as if I just said, here, clean them? How does that work? Do you know?
Yeah, you know, and the problem again with the ATF is nobody will give you a clear answer. I've seen it done a couple different ways. One is you bring it in on a gunsmith log, and it's there for long-term cleaning or something like that. Another, I've heard them argue, they say if it's over 30 days, well, now you have to go and get a background check to get your own gun back. You know, it's one of those, you know, walk in the line kind of things, which it really shouldn't be, because what we're trying to do is keep the law-abiding, you know, people law-abiding from breaking crimes. You know, they don't want to leave their guns out there. They don't want them to get stolen while they're gone. They don't want anybody to do anything that they shouldn't do. And I think the feds really should be bending over backwards when a gun store says, "Hey, if somebody wants to store their guns here for a while." But that usually ends up in give us their name. We want to go talk to them. Why? So they can take their Second Amendment rights. So the easiest way I've seen is short-term do a gunsmith log, bring them in that way, and long-term you might have to 4473 back to them. And all done, by the way, most gun stores with no charge. No charge.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Let's go ahead and move on to our next story, because we got less than 20 minutes left. Rob, you want to tell us about the Chris Murphy?
Yeah. Now, I'm not sure if I can say this. Okay, here's the quote: "Republicans don't give a bleep about kids," according to Connecticut Governor Murphy. His words, not mine. A U.S. senator at the I'm sorry. No, it wasn't Connecticut. Yeah, well, hold on. A Democrat U.S. senator at the forefront of a push to enact new gun control measures said Republicans don't give a blank about children or gun violence. This was Connecticut's Chris Murphy, not the Murphy, senator of New Jersey. My bad. I'm so confused. He's been a leading force for gun control since Sandy Hook. That was back a decade ago. And he made this comment with an interview on Salon, of all places. That was published this week on Tuesday. In the interview, Senator Murphy said it was inexcusable for Republicans to claim they care about the well-being of children while thwarting efforts to shield them from, quote, gun violence, including restricting the sale of, air quotes here, assault weapons. Okay, guys, let it eat.
I'm going to say, if you want to protect children and what they're considering is children from gun violence, you need to lock gang members up. Their first conviction for jaywalking, they get 35 years to life. That will protect children.
Anybody else have a comment before I take a swing?
Yeah, it'll protect everybody, right? All of us forever.
Well,
go ahead, Rob.
What we do see is there is a disproportionate number of children injured by gangs. Gangs don't care where our comment as firearms instructors is, you never miss. It's always going somewhere. Something's going to stop that bullet.
Right.
Gangs are not worried about what stops the bullet. We see a lot of young adults injured and as bystanders by gang shootings. Look at Chicago, look at New Jersey, look at LA. Okay, different issue. Firearms are used in armed defense between dozens to hundreds of times more often than they're used, certainly in murder. The issue becomes, and this is where us numbers geeks get crazy. They say, well, lots of people said they were threatened with a gun. Okay. When I defend myself, did I just defend myself, or did I defend an entire family or an entire grocery store when I stopped a robbery? So trying to compare apples to apples there, we know they're used in self-defense more than criminal use of firearms. The exact numbers are so hard to calculate.
Yeah, and Rob, you and I had a text conversation earlier this week about this exact thing. I'd asked if you'd done the math, because for anybody that doesn't know, Rob is a besides a stand-up Second Amendment guy, he's a math geek. And you actually sent me back a text that gave me pretty specific numbers. I'm looking back at it. We use a firearm in self-defense between 10 and 17 times for each time a criminal has a gun during the commission of their crime. There are unsolved shootings that could reduce that number, is the text you sent me.
Right.
I knew the ratio was high, but 17, that's stout. If they disable, if they totally make gun use and possession illegal, crime is going to get 17 times worse. That's what the numbers in my head say.
Yeah, or worse. You guys have touched crime on the street more than I have. What do you think?
No, well, you can see what happens in Democrat-controlled cities right now, where they've decided that we don't want to. If we incarcerate these people, if we hold them before trial, then it just makes them more angry at the society and the country that has alienated them from birth and made them victims. And when we do that, then what happens? They go right out on the street and hurt somebody again. See, but going back to Murphy's statement, the statement is a false statement. It's not only a straw man argument, but it is based on a false premise. He says, we don't care about laws that would protect children, all right? Now, if you can show me one liberal law that they put out that, whether it's gun registration, whether it's safe storage, and he was talking specifically about Sandy Hook, the mom had her gun safely stored, but the kid got a hold of the key to the safe and went in and killed her, and then went to the school. You see, they have all these nostrums they've been pushing for decades that have absolutely no demonstrable effect on deterring criminals. When a criminal is in jail, he's deterred from hurting me or my own. All he can hurt is other criminals in jail. So, but there's this false thing like, we have the solution if the gun lobby would just get out of the way. So no, you don't have squat. And you don't even care about citizens who are in danger. You care more about lowlifes on the street. And people have to stand up to them. And every law that he proposed would not have kept one single school shooter out of any school. But if we had had an arms in every one of those schools, then we would have had far fewer casualties.
Low-lifes on the street are over 18 years old, and they live off of government checks. He's buying their votes. That's why that's who he cares about, those that are buying the votes. And saying we don't do anything about the children is just another way to buy those votes. Let's imagine there's a place where we send children every day and we congregate hundreds and thousands of them in facilities, and we protect them with an aluminum sign that says no guns allowed here. There hasn't been a child killed in a public school by fire, fire flames, in over 60 years because of the legislation we put in to protect them. Yet they're afraid to put in any sort of controls to protect them from firearms. If Chris Murphy really had an issue, why isn't he standing in Chicago, where the district attorney there dismisses murder charges against one gang against another gang because it was determined to be mutual combat self-protection?
Yeah. It's crazy. It really is. They say one thing, do another. Another thing you remind me of, Mike, is look at how much this has been a fad since at least the Clinton administration. We've got our new dams, hydroelectric power, and flood control for the children bill.
Yeah.
They have piled that on as if they actually care about our kids. But what are they teaching them? They're teaching them critical race theory and victimhood, and all this other garbage that want to turn them into victims. They're lowering the standards so they don't have to teach the kids anything, and the kids don't learn anything. And it just, if they really cared about the children, the first thing they do is abolish the teachers' unions. And the next thing they would do is build a college of education in this country. I went to a college of education, not as an education major, thank the Lord, but as a history major in education, so I could teach. And it's garbage. It's playpen stuff. Matter of fact, if you ask anybody, if you want to be called a doctor and respected by people, then go to the education department. They'll give you a PhD for stacking babies underwater. And no one ever asks, what's your PhD in? It's like that idiot Paul Ehrlich who wrote The Population Bomb, and then all of a sudden he's protesting nuclear power back in the 80s. You know what his PhD was in? Butterfly populations.
Oh, geez.
Qualified to be a physicist.
I was just thinking.
Power. But would Phil Donahue ask him, what was your degree actually in? No, Phil just let him go, and so the rest of the media. I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
You're fine. I was just thinking, Greg, as you were saying that due to my lifestyle in when I was about 18 to 24 years old, I could be a PhD in gender studies because I studied women very closely back then.
There you go. There you go. It's for the children is the battle cry of the losing party, making that one last shot to get the law passed that they want. We hear it all the time. It's for the children. It's for the children. We had here locally down in Orlando a non-gun issue, but for 3 times they tried to pass road tax incentives. Adding to the sales tax to get more money for roads, and we wouldn't let them do it because our county government is just wrought with fraud, waste, and abuse. Every time they get extra money, it's all for special projects, not what it was set out to be. And they lost it 3 times in a row until somebody came up with we need the road tax because it's for the children, because the roads they go to school on every day are dangerous, and they finally got it passed under the "it's for the children" mantra.
Yeah,
guys,
comment in here real quick.
Okay, please.
We're coming up on the top of the hour here shortly, but whoops, pushed the wrong damn button. There we go. Governor Newsom, intentional, I think, typo. Newscum, Newscum in California, is trying to change San Quentin prison into a Swedish-style prison without bars or doors.
Like the rest of
I did
California.
see that story earlier in the week. It's not directly gun-related, so it didn't make it here, but that's also very accurate. I expect they're going to have to replace San Quentin with another real prison is what's going to happen.
Right. Guys, I saw someplace that criminals, particularly mass murderers, prefer gun-free zones. And it's not a little bit. It's like 49-1. So not only do these prohibitions not work, they seem to attract criminals. That's scary. That's really scary. We're painting. It's not that our kids have a target put on their back. It's that we painted the target. Makes me sick, actually.
Yeah.
You're right.
In the book "The War on Cops," 2016 by Heather McDonald, that's why I was turning around. I was trying to find my book. She dedicates about 3 chapters near the end about the federal attempt to basically decriminalize prison. And they have been at it for at least 2 decades in California, reducing prison populations, but they throw everything on the counties because now the sheriffs have to keep them. And
Gotcha.
they're defunding police, they're defunding prison guards, and pretty soon they're just going to, I don't know, take them down to IHOP and let them go. So
that's what they're doing in California, right? That's how many times do we have to see the news where they, same as New York City, they make the arrest, and before the paperwork's even done and the officers left the precinct, they've backed out and arrested them again, for another crime because it's no bond. They're decriminalizing crime in California. It's been, like you said, 20 years they've been at it, and they're almost to perfecting it now.
Yeah,
very close. Very close. We are just about to the top of the hour, so we've got more stories, but I'm going to have to put them aside for another time. I want to start, as I usually do, with Greg, with the person on my right. I want to start with Greg. I suppose I should point that way if I'm going to say the person on my right on the screen. But Greg, if you're on the way out the door here, I want you to plug your book, tell people where they can get it, and a little bit about what's it about.
All right, you can get it from Amazon. This is A Time to Kill, the Bible and Self-Defense. And it's my attempt to show that the idea of pacifism is not in the Bible. It shows it starts chronologically, goes from Genesis to Revelation, and shows that God not only commands us to defend the innocent, but he rewards us for doing so. And it's we've got specific chapters on Jesus, the tough things, turn the other cheek, live by the sword, die by the sword. I explain that biblically in context. And there's also 3 chapters on Jesus in the military. Never told anybody to quit the army. It also applies to cops. And there's 3 chapters on the Bible and the death penalty as well. So this Christian gun nut lawyer put this book together. So you wouldn't have to hesitate if some guy jumps out of an alley with a foot-long Bowie knife. You will know that Jesus is okay if I blow this guy away. All right? Please, it's on Amazon.
All right, Rob, we're going to go to you next. I know which direction to point when I'm pointing at Rob. I do that. Rob, tell us about Self-Defense Gun Stories. Anything else you want to plug today, man?
Right. This show runs an hour. I'm a co-host on the Polite Society podcast. That runs an hour and a half every week. I try and put out a snack food of a podcast. Self-Defense Gun Stories. Try and keep it to 20 minutes. My blog is at slowfacts.wordpress.com. About 2,100 articles. Should keep you busy for a minute. My writing is picked up at AmmoLand Shooting Sports News. Mike?
Gentlemen, I am going to be. You notice I'm not in my regular studio when I do the show. We're doing a live remote today with Arms Room Radio in an hour. We pick it up. We're going to be at Lion Arms. It's lionarmsusa.com if anybody wants to check them out. Today, it's a pretty cool day. We're doing an exclusive interview with a retired Delta Force operator. We're going to find out what he's doing in his post-military life. So we're looking forward to today's show. Oh, and you can watch that, listen to that at armsroomradio.com at 3 o'clock Eastern today.
Very, very cool. Mike, is Arms Room Radio up on OpsLens yet? I know the rundown is, but is Arms Room Radio up on OpsLens yet?
No, I figure the couple appearances with you and the other shows I do, that's enough of seeing my face on the TV. We're still out there on the podcast world, and you can listen to us that way.
All right, very cool. On my end, that's going to wrap up our broadcast week here for the Second Amendment Foundation. I do not do any broadcasts on Sunday, and so, I assist Amanda with her Eye on the Target radio on Sunday, but I'm not a focus of the show. Do come join me Monday, 5 p.m. Central Time, and I can say that now that there are 3 of us here. The Central Time Zone, the only time zone that matters. We are live 5 to 5:30 every Monday through Friday. We'll give you the Second Amendment stories of the day. And then 6 p.m. Monday night is Polite Society Podcast, where we not only go over the stories of the week, we also cover DGUs, and occasionally we'll have interviews with people who are making things happen throughout the gun rights industry. That is going to do it for us today. Thank you, everybody, for watching, for commenting. Thank you, podcast listeners, for listening. And we will see you